I discovered my teenage son had physically assaulted our family dog, Colby, with a hairbrush in his fingers. After I confronted him about it, he confessed, and promised never to do it again. And in return I agreed to keep it between him and I and not tell his mom. A while later, I discovered my son reneged on his promise to me, and had abused the dog again. This time I felt I had to bring my wife into the matter, and when I told her, it all blew up in my face. She couldn't believe her son would do that sort of a thing. And she eventually got it into her head somehow that it must have been me that abused the dog. A short while after telling her about these incidents, we separated, and she wound up with the dog and my son, who when confronted went back and denied that he had ever done anything to the dog, despite admitting to me that he had, and me actually catching him in the act a different time. So the last time I updated, I had been living at a friend's house while my wife and son, and Colby, stayed at the family house. My wife was somehow convinced that I was the abused of our dog and that I was blaming it on my son, which is maybe the most confusing and infuriating feeling I have ever had. I tried calling my son for several days in hope that I could convince him to come clean and help get us on the road to fixing our family. He did not pick up, nor did he ever call me back. So about 2 weeks ago I decided to show up at the house when I knew they would all be there. I knocked on the door and my wife would not answer it. I admit I kind of lost it and started shouting and pounding on it, and she eventually came outside, where a yelling match ensued between her and I in the front yard. I finally left after she just put her hands over her ears and started yelling dog effer, dog effer, dog effer over and over again to try to humiliate me in front of the neighborhood. As I walked back to my car fuming, I looked back at the house and saw my son staring at me from the second-story window with a blank look on his face. I stared at him and shook my head in disappointment, but he didn't change his expression. I have to admit, that really broke my heart and pissed me off. So fast forward to just a couple days ago. I am at work, nearing the end of my day, when suddenly my phone rings and it's my wife. I pick it up, and she's sobbing and obviously very upset. She tells me that Colby has bitten my son, and he has gone to the hospital to get stitches. She says Colby bit him in the lower abdomen 2 times. She doesn't know what to think. Obviously, I know exactly what happened. I could tell she finally knew I was right. Colby would never bite anyone unprovoked. He is an incredibly friendly dog and has no history of biting or being aggressive at all. When we got off the phone, I felt this rage building inside of me. I felt like it was finally time for this crap to end. Colby had stood up for himself against my son, who had betrayed both of us. I couldn't prove it, but I just know my son was abusing the dog again, and I felt responsible for having left him alone with Colby all of these times. It was like Colby finally lashed out in desperation after having nobody there to protect him. I felt sick to my stomach for having abandoned my dog with my kid, who obviously doesn't give a F about me or any of us, as long as he can keep getting away with crap. I left work and went straight to the family home. This time, my wife answered the door and let me in. I went straight to my son's room, where he was laying down watching TV. He looked at me in surprise and I told him not to talk. I basically said, I know what you did, you can deny it and you can blame me all you want, but you and I both know what happened. I am taking the dog, and if I ever find out you go near an animal like this again I will report you to the police. I don't care if you are my son. This is disgusting and unfair, and I raised you better. Obviously I said more than that, but that was the gist of it. He was extremely uncomfortable. Then I went downstairs and out the back door to get the dog. I put on a leash and Colby and walked him back through the house, and my wife stopped me and told me she was sorry. We talked for about 5 minutes, and we both got a little weepy. She asked me to forgive her, which I told her I did. She then invited me to stay at the house, to which I said no, I'm not ready for that, and Colby deserved better. I had already let him down too many times. I left her crying in the house, and put Colby in the car. We drove back to my friend's place, where I am staying. I've since been looking for a small apartment with a short-term lease that accepts dogs, as I have decided that I am not going to move back in with my family, at least not in the immediate future. Colby is finally with me, and is safe, and I need time to think about what our next move should be. I know that asking my friend to house me and now a dog is pushing the bounds of his good grace, so this is what has to happen. However, I still do not know what I'm going to do about my son and wife. Do you think I should report him as is? The more I think about it, the more I am sure he will probably just do this again. Colby might be safe, but I am still, despite all he's done to me, worried about my son. He is a minor, so legally I am still responsible for him. What sort of thing does one do for somebody who does this?